Okay, let's talk about one of the most frustrating feelings in the world. You know the one. You spend hours, maybe even days, learning something. You're reading, you're taking notes, you feel like you finally got it, and then poof, it's just gone. It's like your brain is a sieve. Well, today we're going to patch those holes with a really powerful method called the Feynman technique.
I mean, does this feel familiar to you? You've read the chapter, right? The page is practically glowing with your highlighter ink. You close the book, you feel like a genius. But then, an hour later, someone asks you what it was about, and you get that deer in the headlights look. Your mind is just completely blank. It's like the information just stopped by for a cup of coffee in your brain and then bolted out the back door.
So here's the good news. It turns out this probably isn't because you have a bad memory. No, it's actually a cognitive trap, a mental illusion that pretty much everyone falls into. And it has a name. It's called the fluency illusion. See, our brains are wired to be efficient, to take shortcuts. So when we reread something, it feels easier and faster to process each time, and our brain makes a critical mistake. It confuses this processing speed, this fluency, with actual understanding. It's a cheap form of confidence, a little trick our mind plays on us, making us think we've learned something when we've really just become familiar with it.
And that really gets to the heart of the matter. There's a huge difference between familiarity and understanding. Familiarity is weak. It's passive. It's like recognizing a face in a crowd, but having no idea who they are. True understanding, though, that's strong. It's active. It means you can recall the information from scratch and explain it to someone else. That's how you build knowledge that actually lasts.
You see, real learning kind of works in 3 stages: input, process, and output. The problem is, most of us live our lives stuck in step 1. We just keep pouring in more input, reading another book, watching another video. But we rarely move to the process stage, where you actually connect the ideas. And we almost never get to the most critical stage of all, output. And without output, without explaining or doing something with the information, it just doesn't stick.
So, how do we break this cycle? How do we force ourselves to get to that output stage? Well, we turn to one of the greatest minds of the 20th century, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman. But beyond his physics work, he was famous for something else. They called him the Great Explainer. And this quote? This is his entire philosophy in a nutshell. Feynman absolutely hated jargon and complicated language. He believed that fancy words were usually just a smokescreen, a way to hide that you don't really know what you're talking about. For him, the ultimate test of knowledge was simplicity. If you can't break it down for someone else, you haven't really mastered it yourself.
And what's amazing is that modern science completely backs him up. There's this thing called the protégé effect. It turns out that when you learn with the intention of teaching someone else, your brain automatically starts organizing the information differently, more logically. And that struggle you feel when you try to explain it, scientists call that desirable difficulty. That feeling of being stuck isn't a sign of failure. It's the feeling of your brain building stronger connections. It's literally the feeling of you getting smarter.
Okay, so how do we actually do this? How do we put this into practice? Well, it's a surprisingly simple 4-step process. Let's walk through the Feynman technique together. It's so simple and elegant. First, you just pick a topic you want to learn. Step 2, you pretend you're teaching it to a child. You use the simplest language you can. Step 3 is the most important. You identify where you get stuck. Those are your knowledge gaps. And finally, step 4, you go back, you fill those gaps, and you refine your explanation with even simpler language and powerful analogies. Let's see this in action. Take a complex topic like gravity. To explain it to a child, you wouldn't talk about space-time curvature or gravitational constants, right? No way. You'd create a simple picture like this. Gravity is like an invisible hand from the Earth, and it's always pulling on your ankles just enough so you don't fly away into space. Simple, visual, effective. Now this right here, this is the secret sauce. Those moments when you're explaining and you pause, you stumble, you say or you wave your hands and say, you know, it's that thing. Those aren't failures. They are pure gold. They are a bright, shining spotlight pointing directly at the holes in your understanding. That's your cue to stop and go back to your source material. And that brings us to the final, powerful step, creating analogies. Once you've filled your knowledge gaps, you polish your explanation. So instead of using a textbook term like ATP, the energy currency of the cell, you create an analogy, thinking of it as the body's rechargeable battery, where food is the charger and all your activity uses its power. Now that is an idea that will stick with you forever. So you might be thinking, okay, this sounds great, but
What if I don't have a kid or another person handy to teach? No problem at all. There are a couple of really cool ways to level up this technique and do it completely on your own. First up is a weird but brilliant trick from the world of computer programming called rubber duck debugging. Programmers will literally explain their code line by line out loud to a rubber duck on their desk. The magic isn't in the duck, of course. It's the simple act of verbalizing your thoughts that forces you to structure them and reveals the flaws in your logic. Another great hack is a system to help you focus. This is called the traffic light method. As you go through your topic, you categorize every concept. If you can explain it easily, it's green. You can skip it and save time. If you're totally stuck, it's red. If you're just a bit hesitant, it's yellow. Your mission is to focus all of your energy on the reds and yellows. This is how you become ruthlessly efficient with your study time.
So when you put all of this together, what's the real secret here? It's about completely flipping your perspective on what it even means to learn something.
I want you to let that sink in for a second. We've always been taught that understanding comes first, and then we can explain it. But Feynman's approach flips that completely on its head. It says the very act of trying to explain something is what creates the understanding in the first place. And that leads us to this final, really powerful idea. Forcing yourself to produce output, to explain, to write, to build, to create, is the most potent form of input you will ever find. It's the difference between just being familiar with an idea and truly, deeply mastering it. So, what are you going to try to explain today?